When you think of superheroes, you probably think of Marvel or DC. The Avengers, Batman, Spider-Man, Superman, these characters are everywhere. But a writer who left Marvel from backdoor created an independent superhero that beat them all. Today, we're going to see how Robert Kirkman made an indie superhero that feels nothing like Marvel or DC. Starting with... Here's the thing about most superheroes we all grew up with. They're not just characters, they're products. Spider-Man belongs to Marvel, but Sony has his movie rights. DC's got Superman and Batman, and Warner Bros. Is constantly steering the ship. They hire writers to write different versions of comics, movies, or shows, but they never give them creative freedom. They always end up putting limits on how far writers can go with their characters. Spider-Man can't stay married forever, Batman can't really retire, and Superman can't stay dead for good. But that isn't the case with Invincible. When Robert Kirkman published the series through Image Comics, they gave him ownership and complete creative freedom. With no interference in his work, he was free to move in any direction he chose, and he didn't hold back. This allowed real character growth, brutal consequences that don't magically reverse, and a story that escalates without worrying about other franchises. That single difference of ownership laid the foundation for everything that makes Invincible feel different. Second reason. What sets Invincible apart from other franchises is its tone. It's an R-rated franchise that doesn't hold back anything. Marvel and DC are very mainstream, and because of this, they're always written with a certain level of safety. No matter how dark or gritty the stories get, they still need to be marketable for things like toys and merchandise. But Kirkman didn't need to worry about any corporate machine breathing down his neck. If the story demanded blood, betrayal, or a shocking death, he could go there, and he did. In the first episode of the show, we see Omni-Man brutally murder the whole Guardians of the Globe team. He isn't toned down to make him more likable. He's terrifying, brutal, and honest about his mission. He almost kills his own son to prove how dead serious he is about his mission. They don't pull punches in the show or comics. We see people dying in the most horrific ways, and innocent people die all the time. But it's not just for the shock value, it shows the real consequences of superpowers. If superhuman powers were real, violence would become inevitable. That's something companies like Marvel are always scared to do. But Marvel wasn't always like this. In the early days, they used to show massive civilian casualties and collateral damage like in the first Avengers movie and in Age of Ultron. But as the MCU grew more mainstream, they had to cut down on this violence and play it more safe. But post-Endgame, Marvel has become way too safe. Think about it. In the comics, the Void is capable of wiping out entire cities, but in Thunderbolts, we just saw him pulling people into the Void. By looking at the trailers, everyone thought that the Void was going to kill hundreds of people in the movie. But that didn't happen. Everyone who got consumed by the Void came back completely fine. It's not like I want to see innocent people die, all I'm saying is that this was a really clever way for Marvel to play it safe. But Invincible never had to tone it down. Kirkman wrote it just the way he wanted without compromises. Marvel and DC have both been in the market for decades. Superheroes like Spider-Man, Batman, or Iron Man have thousands of issues, multiple reboots, and countless alternate timelines. If you want to start reading comics, it can become overwhelming. You wouldn't know which version to read first and where it ends. Let's take X-Men for an example. If you want to understand the lore of X-Men, you'd have to choose one from over 1,000 X-Men comics, and you still won't be able to understand the lore completely. Or even if you just want to watch one movie, you have to go through a bunch of spin-offs and prequels, and at one point, it really starts to feel like doing homework. It's not always a bad thing. If you have to watch Batman Begins and The Dark Knight to enjoy The Dark Knight Rises, it feels more like a treat than homework. But things get bad when studios keep pumping out endless spin-offs and prequels just to squeeze every last drop out of a franchise. They start to focus more on quantity over quality because it's really hard to keep the quality across so many projects. This has been a big problem for Marvel ever since Endgame. They took on too many projects at once, and the quality just couldn't keep up. Fans had to sit through shows like She-Hulk and Secret Invasion just so they could keep up with the story. But Invincible isn't like this. It began and ended. No spin-offs, no sequels, and no extra bullshit. It's just a good old superhero story, but the difference is that it actually ends at a point. Also, Robert Kirkman doesn't allow other writers to use his characters and create alternate universes or make any reboots. It's just a one clear storyline from beginning to end. Even though the tone of the show quickly shifts from a lighthearted superhero show to a brutally emotional drama, the voice stays consistent. You'll always feel like you're in the same universe, within the same rules. You can pick up Invincible issue number 1 and know exactly where to go. It doesn't confuse you with any reboots, multiverse connections, or spin-offs. You don't need to know any background lore to understand the story. You can jump right into it and reach the end. And all this makes Invincible more approachable than others. And that brings us to our next reason. In Marvel and DC, superheroes live in a cycle that fans like to call the illusion of change. Sure, crazy stuff happens all the time. Spider-Man gets married, Aunt May dies, Superman gets killed by Doomsday. But if you stick around long enough, everything gets undone. Characters like Aunt May or Uncle Ben, who have died even more times than some villains, somehow always return. Iron Man might die or Captain America might retire in a big crossover, but they'll always find a way back because these superheroes make billions for the studios. Batman needs to be Batman, whether it's for the next movie or his next comic arc. As a result, long-term consequences barely stick, and the cycle never truly breaks. A major death or a plot twist might shock you in the moment, but in the back of your head, you always know it's just a matter of time before they press the reset button and everything becomes the same. But Invincible is completely different. The show proves it right from the start that when people die, they stay dead. Omni-Man wipes the floor with the Guardians of the Globe in the first episode, and it wasn't like a DC crossover where they can respawn a year later. They were gone permanently, and it reshaped everything. And this doesn't stop in the future episodes. When Battle Beast beats the shit out of Mark, he's hospitalized, shaken, and even starts to question himself if he's made for this. And this trauma actually follows him into the next season. Even side characters don't get a reset. Debbie doesn't magically heal from Nolan's betrayal. We see her actually struggle to put herself back together. Amber doesn't play the stereotypical girlfriend role. When she calls Mark out for constantly vanishing, it actually sticks. Their relationship gets messy, and the fallout feels like something real people would go through, not a quick comic book misunderstanding that's fixed by the next issue. Death especially hits harder in Invincible. People in Invincible die bloody, and they don't get comic book resurrections. A bunch of side heroes are literally ripped apart in fights against Viltrumites, and that's it. They don't just come back in 6 months. Their death actually haunts viewers. It makes you scared for everyone because you never know who will be next. Compare that to Marvel's Civil War. Captain America dies, but he's back before long. Or DC's death of Superman, a legendary moment, but within a year he's resurrected like nothing ever happened. That's just how those universes survive. Big deaths grab headlines, but long-term, nothing really changes. That's why Invincible hits so hard. With Marvel and DC, you know Spider-Man will swing again, and Batman will return to Gotham no matter what. But in Invincible, we don't know who survives and who doesn't. That makes every punch scarier, every fight riskier, and every choice feels like it actually matters. When you look at Marvel and DC, their heroes usually revolve around the same set of themes. Spider-Man is all about responsibility, like balancing his normal life with his duty as a hero. Batman is about justice and fear, using his trauma to fight crime. Superman is about hope and showing people the best version of themselves. These themes work, and they're iconic, but they're also kind of safe. They don't usually shake things up too much. Invincible goes for something heavier and more uncomfortable. It's not just with great power comes great responsibility. It's more like what happens when that power is used to take over, to control, and to destroy. Let's start with empires. Viltrumites aren't your average alien bad guys. They're basically space conquerors. Their whole culture is built around survival of the fittest, and instead of sending massive armies, they send out one insanely strong warrior to different planets. That warrior blends in, gains trust, and slowly prepares the planet to fall. That's what Omni-Man was doing on Earth for decades. He wasn't just a hero, he was Earth's babysitter until the Viltrumites could swoop in. When he finally reveals this to Mark, it's not just a shocking twist for the audience. It's a brutal reminder that Earth is part of something way bigger and way scarier than we thought. It's not just a superhero story anymore, it's a story about colonization, about what happens when one powerful group decides your world is theirs. And then there's legacy. And honestly, this is one of the biggest things that makes Invincible so unique. Mark isn't just some kid who wakes up with powers one day. He's the son of Omni-Man, who turns out to be one of the most terrifying person in the universe. That's a weight no Marvel or DC hero really carries. Batman's parents are dead. Superman is the last son of Krypton. Peter Parker has guilt over Uncle Ben. But Mark? He has to wake up every day knowing his dad is the guy who crushed the Guardians of the Globe like bugs and sees human race as ants. So every fight, every choice, every time he saves someone, he's also fighting against the fear that he might become his father. That's what makes his journey so personal. He's not just trying to be a hero, he's trying to prove to himself and to the world that he's not destined to become a monster. So, yeah, Invincible dives into empire, legacy, and identity in a way Marvel and DC usually don't. It's not about simple morals or clean victories, it's about power, family, and the weight of trying to protect a world that might be impossible to save. And that's why Invincible feels so different. It's not controlled by big studios, it doesn't hold back, it's simple to follow, the consequences actually last, and it talks about things Marvel and DC almost never do.